Round of applause for Nicolas Guillermin. Please take a seat. Grab a mic. Nicolas, you are working for the European Commission at the DG-DEFIS, and your role is a security manager of the IRIS² program. We've been talking a lot about IRIS² yesterday. I know you were busy in Brussels and you joined us today in Paris. We talked about the European initiatives, including the EU Space Law with Guillaume Delabos, the EU Space CYSAT that kicked off yesterday, and IRIS² was the last initiative we mentioned. As I said, you were at CYSAT last year. Can you recap for the audience a bit, if anybody missed the previous episodes of this IRIS² series, where we stand today?
Of course, possible. You remember last year we went, and actually it was the very beginning of the procurement phase. So the rules of engagement were very stringent. We have actually done a full dialogue, let's say completely screen, and actually no question and answer. So you see that this year we will actually be more open. Of course, actually the program has moved on. Although actually I need to respect certain rules of engagement that I will recall now, and then we can come to go to the rest. So we want to do, let's say, a talk on IRIS² and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity leads actually to stringent rule about confidentiality, so classified information. So obviously, if you are actually expecting that I deliver the secret of fabrication of IRIS², I fear you will be disappointed. And the second is IRIS² is still an ongoing procurement, so actually I'm a little bit bounded by what I can say on the procedure itself, and I'm sorry for that. But however, actually we can, let's say, have this year a session of Q&A. We are actually ongoing procedure negotiating these contracts, let's say, to establish the loop and to start the implementation as soon as possible. I hope very, very, very soon.
Some good news then. We can talk, we can have some questions, and hopefully some answers. Can we agree that you have two wild cards when you can pass if you don't like the question? For these,
precisely.
Okay. What is the budget and when does it start? All right.
Joker.
Okay, we're done. Thank you, Nicolas. Please use the application Connects Me for all your questions. We'll do our best to relay them to Nicolas and to get some answer to our best ability. So yeah, last year we were in the middle of the tendering period. One consortium answered and is currently in negotiation with the Commission. And also, that's for the procurement process, and also maybe as an introduction, everybody knows IRIS². I mean, the name is now familiar to the space industry, but can you maybe recap a bit the big picture? What are the big goals of the programs? What does it look like, just roughly speaking?
Yeah, of course, actually. So IRIS², if I remember actually the beginning of my speech last year, so I will repeat it. I'm sorry, because basically the objective did not change. So actually everything in the European Union starts with a regulation. And within the regulation, actually every regulation starts with the objectives. And this is very easy because it leaves actually the citizens really easiness to see actually what are the important topics. So for the case of IRIS², you will find them in the Article 3. And basically, let's say they are limited to only two. The first one is to provide for governments capacities, SATCOM capacities all around the world, and with, let's say, a certain level of robustness that is needed to ensure a certain number of use cases, which start from emergency to humanitarian aids, to protection of the critical infrastructure, up to defense. So this is the first goal. And the second goal is actually to allow the private sector to onboard the program and all whatever comes in terms of contracts, infrastructure development, etc., to make sure that, to, let's say, invest and benefit from, let's say, the synergies between the governmental, what we call the governmental infrastructure, delivering our service for our government, to the, in order to ensure several, let's say, political objectives such as digital divides, of course, but respecting, let's say, the inherent rule of this domain, for example, market competition, etc. So basically, as a consequence, this infrastructure will be built in the form of a public-private partnership. So basically, we expect not only actually the Commission and with him our partner HISA to invest into the infrastructure, but we expect also the private sector, so SATCOM operators, telco operators, to come and to invest in exchange actually to be able to deliver commercial service on the basis of a commercial conditions. So, of course, actually, we will come to that, but this is a challenge for security, as you can see, as you can imagine. But this is, in a nutshell, the two objectives of the program.
Thanks a lot. And before going into the security topic, can you give us also a big picture about what does IRIS² looks like? Are we talking about a low Earth orbit constellation? Sometimes we heard that there could be some integration within existing constellations or MEO, GEO. Do we have a bit of an idea of what the infrastructure looks like?
An idea, yes. Let's say we will have, let's say, a clear idea when we will have a clear commitment from the industry, which come with schedule, cost, and scope. So, but we expect, of course, a multi-orbital constellation taking the benefits of the different layers that provides, let's say, different trade-off between the capacity at the cost with the GEO, for example, and basically extremely low latency and very performant connectivity with the LEO layer. So basically our objective is to benefit from all of this for our governmental sector and also for the commercial with the investors. We will know more how many satellites exactly, how many layers, etc., will be known as soon as we have got a commitment. So I need to remain careful because as long as I do not have an industrial partner that commits, it's very difficult to answer to this question.
Fully understood. This morning I was moderating a panel with the new space companies and security officers. They were all under a lot of pressures to go fast to the market and to comply with some security regulations. In that sense, IRIS² sounds a bit like a new space project, very ambitious, very fast, go to market. And then the question this morning to my panel was, is security management the dream job or the mission impossible? What do you think for your own?
Yeah. Actually, it's my life, so I can talk, let's say, a lot about that. In fact, what is important for the dream job or mission impossible, basically, I would say, very important. First, to understand how security integrates into the organization. The only thing that I can say is that IRIS is a very big program. Indeed, you are correct. Very aggressive schedule, so let's say very, I would say, no space in the way it is done. But the very importance for a security manager, whether it is old or new space, is to understand what is the role of security and what are the expectations of security and how it is integrated within, let's say, the overall ecosystem. And so basically, I would say in our domain, in fact, the answer is quite clear. Secure connectivity, it is the name of the program. So security must be high, and must be high in the governance. So basically, what we have from the regulation is basically a governance that is, let's say, to the highest level of the program, very stringent, and actually I would say one of the most stringent that exist, which is the governance related to classified information. And with a security accreditation board, which is a regulatory entity that is in charge, composed with member states. You were seeing yesterday the chairman of the security accreditation board. And basically, if you have a look at the regulation, this security accreditation board approves a certain number of things. For example, the authorization to launch satellite, the authorization to deliver, to start the service, the authorization to interconnect anything to the infrastructure, whatever it is. So basically, you understand that we are in a situation where whatever the speed we want to make, we need to prove that security is on board, otherwise the program will be blocked. With, let's say, a classical consequence, which is that the public sector lose money to fix, lose schedule, so you do not deliver the service, but which is something which is one specificity of IRIS². On top of that, you jeopardize the return of investment from the private sector. And while actually I think we can survive, or the public sector can survive if actually this thing is not done correctly, can survive from, let's say, 1 year or 2 years of delays on such a program. For the private sector, it's absolutely impossible. It's, let's say, it's a condition between life and death. So what is very important is that basically you see security is at the top level, because basically the accreditation boards come from the top governance that we have in terms of security, the one which is inherited from classified information. But this is not new. What is very, let's say, new is the involvement of the private sector and the necessity also for this community that actually is used with the system, the classified system, where actually the private sector has a very minor role to accommodate and to deal with, let's say, private sector involvement, which, let's say, risk their continuity in this program. So it's this is the very specificity, and basically this is my everyday living to ensure that actually both the public sector and the private sector in this very new landscape actually understand each other and can identify in their, let's say, everyday life and every use what can be, let's say, kept as it is as for the programs, and I would say what needs to change and what needs to accelerate in a way.
That's a great transition. We got the first question on the app. Thanks a lot, Oliver. We're talking about the PPP and investment of private companies, so it's not really related to security, but still I'll ask the questions. The question is, how does IRIS² compare to existing mega constellations? And I guess the elephant in the room is Starlink. Do you have an answer to that?
So Starlink is quite simple. Actually, let's say it's driven by one single guy. So they've got a very effective governance, and sometimes I envy the governance of Starlink. However, actually, one of the key points is that who takes the risk bears the decision. So this is quite logic. Really, actually, Starlink is very effective because it's a private endeavor, fully managed by one guy who, let's say, takes all the risk. However, actually, our objective is to ensure, let's say, the governmental service first, and this is the first objective. So we need to ensure that actually the user needs, and does not exist in Starlink, the user needs of the governmental sector are taken on board. Are really appreciated to the level they need to be appreciated. Of course, there is forcefully actually a dimension of EU strategic autonomy on the matter, which, let's say, creates additional constraints that, for example, the one that actually you are very exposed to, which are the eligibility and participating condition, but there are other coming from that. I would say actually the objective is not the same. It's really actually the Starlink is only the second part of and does not take into account actually the first part. And as you can see in the US, this is not because Starlink exists that all the US DoD has shifted to it. It's far from here.
Yeah. Let's talk about security. It's a big task. Rumor has it that it's almost half of the budget. Is that something you can comment on?
No.
All right, this is this is very
But
clear.
nice try.
And then, what would be the approach to integrate security by design for such an ambitious program? How do you work with industrial partners?
Yeah. Yes, this is a question I can completely answer to, and thank you for this question. In fact, one of the first things is basically not start with the industry. You need to do your homework first, and basically, if you have a look at the different regulation linked to cyber, you find the answer also in the regulation, and this answer comes from the NIST directive. If you go, my favorite article is the Article 21, which is the best one, which basically, let's say, state whatever you have to do. You have to do according to. Actually, I read it. I'm sorry because it's a very complicated one. It's just you have to take on board the state of art. You have to be cost effective. And you have to identify the measures that are appropriate to the risk posed, taking into account exposure and the societal severity of, let's say, an incident. So basically, what does it say? It says how you need to do the trade-off. And this, I am an engineer. This is what I prefer. So when the situation is very complicated, and you be to the most pragmatic possible. And actually, in the cybersecurity domain, the thing that actually is for doing this trade-off, you need to put in the middle of your analysis what we call the risk assessment, risk and threat analysis, whatever you name it, EBIOS, the ISO 2705, whatever let's say, choose your preferred methodology. I have absolutely no religion. And you need to put it really, really in the middle. And what are the commonalities of this different risk analysis is basically you need to define first your objectives. Mm-hmm. And basically your objective must not be, let's say, very wide. They need to be very, you do not need to have hundreds of them, otherwise you will lose yourself into complexity. And this is, I am an engineer too, so I need to, let's say, master the complexity for those who will suffer from it. Mm-hmm. So basically I would say, the security objective needs to be discussed with the user. Where is their use, and what actually is, let's say, the things that they do not want to see with this system in terms of what we call the feared events or the consequences. So basically, what is the level of assurance that they want to see that the system demonstrates? So do they actually, is it acceptable that sometimes the system does not deliver the service? Is it absolutely impossible?
We have a question actually, Nicolas, on the threat model. Does it include the threats posed by quantum computers for IRIS²?
Yeah, of course. And by the way, I think this one is specifically in the regulation, so we need to take we need to take it on board. Although actually, that there are several ways to take it on board. But I was coming to the threat because for me, actually, it's first the needs, then the threats. So I can come directly to the threat. Actually, the threat is quite simple with regards to IRIS². This is a strategic tool, so we need to take on board the strategic threat. Within the strategic threat, you have the emergence of the quantum computer. This is quite obvious. So we have, let's say, two ways, actually, on the matter, if we can go into the details. You saw that in the regulation, we have a very specific topic on quantum communication. Quantum communication, besides actually being a breakthrough in terms of technology, as, let's say, if I bring some good thing, because it's inherently secure against the quantum computer. By the way, it's inherently secure against any type of computer. So even the one you cannot imagine yesterday. This is a specific feature. However, this quantum things actually is really a maturing technology where it gets out of the research laboratory, and we need some time to mature it. So we have other recipes for, let's say, that are more easily deployable in the time, but actually we will mature it and when it's built ready, actually integrated.
We had some topics and keynotes actually this morning about post-quantum cryptography and also QKD. Quantum key distribution is a big topic. Is there any direction or vision in terms of countermeasures or technologies that could be implemented in the IRIS² program in terms of PQC and QKD?
So we are digging more and more, let's say, towards the classified information. But I will try to provide an answer anyway, because actually this is a very important topic. You have basically what brings the quantum computer in the field is that it is the breaking of several cryptographic primitives that relies mainly on index calculation in a field. I used to be a specialist of that, so it's my PhD thesis. Unfortunately, it's useless anymore, so don't read it. But the fact is that basically did not break completely cryptography. So you have, let's say, new tools that appeared. You have old tools that already still exist and are still robust against this. So basically, IRIS² is using cryptography everywhere, and basically, let's say, using cryptography which is not broken, obviously. So this is the objective. With regard to quantum cryptography, so quantum communication, this is an emerging technology, so we will use it when it will be ready and demonstrate the capacity with solution integrable that are able to protect the information. And for us, actually, it's clear it's classified information that we want to protect.
Yeah, very clear. Thanks a lot. Talking about crypto, again, lots of discussions at CYSAT this year about regulations, certification, standards. Can you mention any certifications that will be applied to the IRIS² program, for example, for the crypto, for other critical components, or standards that will be serve as a guideline for the program?
Well, our aim is to actually use as the maximum extent actually all the standards which are on the table. Some of them are quite mandatory. Whatever relates to classified information creates actually a strong link to what they call the council and the council policies, which are quite stringent, which are we have no choice but to do that. So mainly, actually, it links to cryptographic policies that we need to pass through, so ensuring evaluation of our system according to the framework of classified information. I won't enter into the details, but but it's yeah, yeah. Obviously,
level
this is not. Let's say it's very high layer. So basically, the best of class, I would say, in this domain. Of course, it takes time, but actually, the level of assurance you got against this framework is one of the most stringent, and basically it has inferred actually all the schemes that you know from the common criteria up to below. Actually takes all the recipe of this framework that are applicable to the below one. So this is basically the first one which have ever existed, and basically this is the one we have to pass, obviously, because classified information, as I said, accreditation is a word which has not been used by mistake. It's linked to classified information and the legacy of classified information. This means that basically we need to pass through that whenever actually classified information is involved.
A lot of keywords that you mentioned today remind me of the Galileo program. Can you maybe explicit the differences between IRIS² and Galileo in terms of security? Is it going to be some sort of copy-paste, or are there big differences in the approach, or I don't know?
The most obvious thing is that basically one is telecom, and the other one is navigation. But let's say in terms of security, what does it mean? In fact, if you have a look at what is a navigation system, you see that actually it is a closed loop delivering a broadcasting scheme. And while actually the other one is a telco network, so completely open to the world. So you can imagine that although the building blocks can be similar, we can use exactly the same recipe, the way we assemble the recipe is completely and hugely different. This is we use the same tools, the cryptography, we use the same tools, defense in depth, segregation. But actually, one of the key challenges of telco system is that basically you cannot close a telco system. A telco system is by essence a system which is open, and you cannot actually rely on the security of the user itself. You need actually to accommodate with the specificity, the need of the user. First one, we have, let's say, governmental provider for governmental user beyond. So basically, it's absolutely impossible to have a look at what they do. So, and second, actually, we have to also to take into account that several users may be hacked themselves. So we need to protect our system against the user. So in a nutshell, actually, a complete different architecture in terms of security, but let's say with the same tools the same tools used here and there.
And within these different types of protection mechanisms or countermeasures, we talked about crypto and so on. That's a big toolbox available for the industrial consortium that will be implementing IRIS². What makes it so specific for the IRIS² program? We talked a bit about Galileo, but are there any other specific items that you would like to point to for IRIS²?
Yeah, I could point actually one of the key challenges in terms of security of IRIS², let's say coming mainly, let's say from let's say the user need and the nature of what is a public-private partnership. As a good news for let's say militating for public-private partnership, we see that basically the needs of the governmental user and the needs of the commercial sector, so let's say the traditional user of SATCOM, are quite different and quite complementary. Basically, a governmental user, let's say, wants to rely on SATCOM where nothing is left. So when there is a crisis, when there is a military, of course, the military operation, but actually we can imagine a lot of things, and basically he wants it in crisis environments, and he wants to use it, let's say, precisely at that time and to not be bounded by the capacity he has. On the other side, the commercial sector is like quite more, let's say, it's different in terms of usage. So basically, you use it in peacetime for commercial users that use it permanently in area of the world where actually SATCOM has been identified as the most effective way to use it. So, for example, overseas, in let's say regions that are isolated from the rest of the where let's say ground telco terrestrial network are more expensive. This is obviously not in the same places. Yeah. And by the way, one of the key things is that, let's say, when crises arise, in particular military crises arise, it's obvious that the commercial service needs to stop to be delivered to the people which are against you. So, in a nutshell, I would say that this complementarity with IRIS² needs to be leveraged. And leveraged while respecting a certain form of segregation between actually the people that require strong security and, let's say, of course, the commercial sector, which needs to have, which driver is capacity against price. So one of the key challenges is this one.
Okay. We have 1 minute left. Time goes really quick. We have one question that I found very interesting is that is there any market segments that are explicitly excluded from the IRIS² program? And I'm thinking about military and defense missions. We talked about governmental actors, that's clear. But we saw that with the Ukraine conflicts, for example, the Ukraine army sometimes relied on commercial links, and we saw it with the CYSAT attack. Will there be military defense players relying on the IRIS² connectivity?
We hope, because we are doing this for them too. Although actually we have let's say we have a strong governance associated to that. It's basically the member state who decide on which system they want to rely. We have also the alternatives. So if you can see actually what is the trend in this domain is to rely more and more on many systems instead of having, let's say, put all our eggs in the same basket. And basically, the European Union has also the answer to that with the former GovSatcom, which is basically trying to pool and share unused resource capacities that are already existing to be able to deliver it to the governmental service. So basically, we provide a system which is new in the landscape, which will provide, let's say, a lot of service, but it's really up to the user to decide on which they want to rely and on which they want. What we give them is basically the level of transparency to get the adequate trust in this system.
Okay. Very last question, because we're already over time. I invite you, Nicolas, back to CYSAT 2025 next year. What would you hope to be able to announce at CYSAT 2025?
I started to become cautious with regard to what I could I could announce. Maybe the number of satellites, etc., the timeline, the schedule, everything that you really dream of, and actually any kind of. I hope that at the end we will have, let's say, very good news, and that we should demonstrate that the program is running and running fast and delivering all its promises. So this is what I hope.
And by the way, I'm also inviting Thierry Breton, if he's up for the train ride with you to CYSAT and Paris next year. He's more than welcome to come by to CYSAT.
Yeah, unfortunately, don't count on me to relay this information. I'm a simple civil servant of the European Commission. So, but
super. Time is up. Thank you so much, Nicolas. A big round of applause, please.
Thank you.